On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Sometimes things just don't work out the way that you'd like them to on the world stage. Regular viewers will know that we've always championed and supported the work of Greta Thunberg, and I know I haven't pronounced her surname properly, please forgive me. Greta is a teenage climate activist who has done more, possibly than any other person alive, to bring the existential crisis that faces the human race into the public view. Recently, she has been being attacked by all sorts of people who really should know better, including a man called Toby Young. Don't you wish it could actually have happened like this? Well, we can always dream, you never know what's going to happen. My name's John Downs and welcome to another episode of On the Track. I do hope that you all enjoy this episode of On the Track. I think it's a pretty good one. It's got some fantastic stuff in it. Now, I just want to warn you, over the last month, we've all got used to OTTXtra coming out every week. Karina goes into hospital this week for an operation on her kidney, and we all hope and pray that it will make things better for her. On top of that, we are rearranging the house so Mother, when she comes back from the nursing home, can have somewhere to sleep downstairs rather than upstairs, so she doesn't have to worry about the stairs. Therefore, if there isn't an On the Track extra next week, and I don't actually think there will be, please don't worry or think that the whole process is ground to a halt. But it's quite right and proper that family stuff has to come first. See you when it's all sorted. And can somebody teach that stupid dog that he doesn't have to bark every time that I do voiceovers? It doesn't mean that there's someone new and exciting visiting me in the office that he really needs to go and either say hello to or bite. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you all know, at least regular viewers will know, and I'd like to think you're all regular viewers out there, this is my favourite part of the show, and it's probably my favourite part of my month as well, when Charlotte and I sit down in front of the green screen and we talk about the things that's happened in the last month in, around and about Loch Ness. Now, first of all, Charlotte, do you remember Eoin O Faodhagain?
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know who Eoin O Faodhagain is, not only is he the guy who has seen the Loch Ness Monster on the Loch Ness webcam on a multitude of occasions, but he is also the guy whose name we had no idea how to pronounce. It's written like this, and according to some of my Irish contacts, it's pronounced Eoin O Faodhagain. So, if it's not pronounced Eoin O Faodhagain and I got it wrong, blame them, not me. But Eoin O Faodhagain has now seen the Loch Ness Monster, or seen what he believes of the Loch Ness Monster on the Loch Ness webcam 4 times this year, making 6 in total. What do you think of this picture, Charlotte? Dum ba da dum ba da bum ba da bum.
Oh my god. Are you kidding me?
No. What do you think of that, Charlotte?
It could literally be just a dark spot in the water.
Hang on, I'm just going to try and see if we can get that any bigger, just to see if I can. So if it, I can't see a thing. I don't even think it is a dark spot in the water, it's just water. Oh well, sorry Mr. O'Faodhagain. I so wish, because you're probably the most diligent Loch Ness hunter in the world, you probably spend more time looking at the Loch Ness webcam than anybody else, certainly anybody else I've heard of. And if anybody deserves to see the Loch Ness Monster, it's you. It's this guy. He seems to be a really nice guy, and he's really, really dedicated. But, nah, that's awful, isn't it? However, as you will remember last month, and this is really important because in our celebrity culture, in society, celebrity endorsements are everything. And you remember last month we went through the fallout from Dr. Neil Gemmell's suggestion that the only possible identity for the Loch Ness Monster, if it exists, is being a giant eel. Do you remember that? And some people, especially in the popular press, have got really ludicrous about it. They got totally over the top, missed the point completely and said, Nessie doesn't exist, it's only an eel. And I told you my story about the little eel bit me on the finger, blah, blah, blah. You've all heard the story, because I still think a giant eel, and we're talking about an eel that could be 15, 17 feet long, 12 feet long, a really, really big eel. I think that is a pretty far out monster. But there's a very famous person who doesn't agree, and who has gone out in the press apparently this last month and has claimed that he doesn't believe that the Loch Ness Monster is an eel, but he believes that the Loch Ness Monster is whatever a real monster is. And do you know who we're talking about?
Yeah.
Shall we say it in one go to the camera? 1, 2, 3. Boris Johnson! And of course we always believe everything he says, don't we, dear? He's obviously a man of great probity. He's a man who has the truth, and finding out the truth is his only objective.
Yeah.
You sound so unconvinced. So, if you're watching this, Mr. Johnson, and of course, as I'm sure you, being the political head of our great nation, have to keep an eye on the important things that happen in the media, and nothing gets more important than our monthly web TV show On the Track. So if you're watching this, Mr. Johnson, please drop me a line at john@eclipse.co.uk, and we would love you to come on the show as our special guest. And I'll tell you what, I'll let Charlotte interview you. You'd like to interview Mr. Johnson, wouldn't you? I'm sure you've got some questions to ask him.
What way?
Like, Mr. Prime Minister, why are you such a...
That's enough of that, dear.
A black leopard prowling the rooftops of the French town of Armentières in Lille was reported last month by the French media. The leopard, commonly known as a black panther, which wildlife officials believe was about 6 months old, was being kept as a pet and escaped through an open window while its owner was apparently away. Dozens of people surrounded the row of houses to observe the panther explore the rooftops, forcing emergency workers to erect a cordon. The big cat reportedly remained calm throughout the event, occasionally stopping to watch vehicles and pedestrians go by. A police officer on the scene said, "In 20 years of service, I have never seen anything like it." Eventually, the panther, which was a female, re-entered her home, and firefighters took the opportunity to put a ladder against the building, blocking the window and her escape. Wildlife officials were then able to tranquilise her. The panther, weighing about 20 kilograms, which is about 45 pounds, was then relocated to the Maubeuge Zoo. The owner, who was not identified, is currently being sought by the French authorities for endangering the lives of the local residents. Then things got really weird. Zoo employees at Maubeuge found the gate of the big cat pen broken when they arrived for work on the morning of Tuesday the 24th of September. The animal was the only target, said Arnaud de Cagny, the town's mayor, according to the news agency. Police officers are now checking footage from the zoo's CCTV system. Staff at the zoo are concerned about the animal's welfare, as it lacks much strength. The cat's owner, who is actually known to the police, is still on the run and is wanted by detectives. It is believed the panther may have been smuggled into France illegally, as it wasn't microchipped, and whether the animal was microchipped by the zoo staff while at Maubeuge is unknown. The owners and the animal's current whereabouts are both unknown. It's ironic that every time some blurry footage of a domestic cat does the rounds on social media, credulous fanatics jump to the defence of these videos, and when good clear footage which undoubtedly shows a genuine big cat shows up, the same individuals claim it to be nothing more than a domestic moggy. Sometimes I despair of the human race.
And now it's time to go over to Karina for our regular monthly visit to the Watcher of the Skies.
Some people within cryptozoology believe that there are still dinosaurs on the Earth. Dinosaurs thrived in the warm temperatures and mild weather of the Mesozoic era. Then, one day, 66 million years ago, a huge meteorite crashed to Earth in what is now the Gulf of Mexico. All of a sudden, the Earth became much colder and darker. Plants died and food became scarce, and 3/4 of the creatures living on Earth, including the dinosaurs, went extinct. But one group of dinosaurs survived, and they still survive today. Birds are descendants of theropod dinosaurs and have spread all across the globe. Some are tiny, some are enormous, and they're all sizes in between. I'm fascinated by these creatures, which is why John called me the Watcher of the Skies. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Karina Downs and welcome to another episode of Watcher of the Skies. As regular viewers will know, Carl and his parents went to the Natural History Museum in London back in August. Carl filmed all sorts of things for us, and here is another addition to his cryptozoological aviary. Probably the most iconic extinct animal of all time is the dodo, a huge flightless pigeon that once lived on the Indian Ocean island of Mauritius. There were two known species in the clade, known as the Raffininae.
The dodo was a pigeon?
Yeah.
There were two known species in the clade, known as the Raffininae, the dodo, and the closely related solitaire from the island of Reunion. The dodo was by far the better known of the two, and subfossil remains suggest that it was about a metre tall and weighed up to 17.5 kilos. It was first discovered by Dutch sailors in 1598, and the last accepted sighting took place less than 70 years later, the bird having been driven to extinction by the predations of humans and the animals they brought with them, such as pigs and rats. The forest on Mauritius, which was their home, is nearly all gone now, and the biota of the island is a pale reflection of what it once was. One of the strangest things in this story is that this particular flightless bird only became as iconic as it is over a century after its extinction, and this was because of a children's book. Sir John Tenniel is undoubtedly best known for his illustrations to Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking-Glass, the former of which, published in 1865, includes probably the world's most famous illustration of a dodo. Although several living specimens were taken to Europe and at least one each to India and Japan, the only remains of dodos now are a dried head and foot in the Oxford University Museum of Natural History.
Why are you laughing, Charlotte?
Karina started to laugh.
Although several living specimens were taken to Europe and at least one each to India and Japan, the only remains of dodos now are a dried head and foot.
this is one of the biggest tragedies of zoology, and you're cackling like a
Once you
tackle
start,
girl.
you can't stop, can you? Although several living specimens were taken to Europe and at least one each to India and Japan, the only remains of dodos now are a dried head and foot in the Oxford University Museum of Natural History, a foot once housed in the British Museum but now lost, a skull in the University of Copenhagen Zoological Museum, and an upper jaw in the National Museum Prague. The last two were rediscovered and identified as dodo remains in the mid-19th century. Apart from these remains, a dried foot, which belonged to the Dutch professor Peter Pauw's dodo, was mentioned by Carolus Clusius in 1605. Its provenance is unknown and is now lost. One of the original names for the dodo was the Dutch walgvogel, first used in the journal of Dutch Vice Admiral Wybrand van Warwick, who visited Mauritius during the Second Dutch expedition to Indonesia in 1598. Walg means tasteless, insipid or sickly, and vogel means bird. And the next paragraph includes rather a lot of Dutch words, so I apologise in advance if I make a complete hash of them. The name was translated by Jacob Friedlib into German as Walstock or Walchvogel. More details were given of the bird's use as foodstuff in Het Tweedy Bowick.
Tweedy Bowick.
Het Tweedy Bowick.
Het Tweedy Bowick.
It sounds like a song from Eurovision, doesn't it? Het Tweedy Bowick, het the Tweedy Bowick, het Tweedy Bowick, got my finger in a dike.
The name was translated by Jacob Friedlib into German as Walstock or Walchvogel. More details were given of the bird's use as foodstuff in Het Tweed Bowick, portraying them as unappetising. Though the sailors cooked them, the dodos, for a long time, they were very tough to eat, although the breast and the stomach were very good. The meat was so tough that we could not cook it done, but had to eat it half done. The terms Walstock and Walgvogel or Walchvogel found in Van Nek's publications, or wallow bird in English translations, may well derive from the Middle Dutch walga, meaning nausea, and the Middle English wialg, meaning insipid. Translated French accounts took Walgvogel and turned it into oiseau de nausée, and this brings us into our next story. This comes from a TV documentary from the early 1990s. John remembers watching it, but cannot remember what show it was, so although this is a useful piece of corroborative evidence to show the disdain that even educated people in the 17th century felt towards the natural world, because we can't remember where the story came from, it is useless from an academic point of view. One cannot really provide a reference annotation of "I saw it on TV once, but I can't remember where." Allegedly, one of the final, if not the last, specimens to have been caught live was sent back from Mauritius to Europe as a gift to the King of Holland. On the way back, the ship became becalmed, and although there was enough food for the crew, there was a serious shortage of quality viands for the captain and officers.
God damn it, chef, where is my dinner?
The French chef was beside himself with worry until he had a great idea.
Bonjour, I am the ship's chef, and my name is Monsieur Poupou, and I am here on the poop deck. I have a problem. What am I going to feed the captain for his dinner? I think we have a silly bird on deck. I think his name is a Dodo. I think this little fat bird will be tremendous, with some garlic sauce and my own special ingredient.
But the oiseau de nausée lived up to its name. It was so revolting that they threw it overboard, and that was the end of the last dodo. That story may or may not be true, but it is worth telling anyway. The dodo has become an international icon for extinction, but believe it or not, it has been suggested that this peculiar creature might still be alive. Roy McCall, who died in 2013, was one of the leading cryptozoologists in the last 3 decades of the 20th century, and in 1980 published an excellent book called Searching for Hidden Animals. Although the British Empire has largely become independent and as a result of decolonisation following the Second World War, France still retains most of her overseas possessions, including large portions of the Indian Ocean. This is largely because whereas British possessions were either colonies or protectorates, the overseas portions of the French Empire were designated as France Outre-mer, France overseas. As a result, for example, the territory of French Guiana in South America is part of the EU as much as it is the Riviera. Mackal suggested that following suggestions by early explorers that dodos could exist on some of the unexplored and uninhabited islands in the Indian Ocean, and citing Willie Ley, he repeated Ley's suggestion that they could be found on the uninhabited French island of Tromlin. In the 39 years since Mackal wrote his book, the island has been studied more thoroughly, and it is highly unlikely that anything the size of a dodo could have survived there. Other islands, which were to be found on early charts, have turned out not to exist, victims of global satellite photography. We have spent many hours combing Google Earth in search of heavily forested uninhabited islands in the Indian Ocean, but to no avail. We would love to be wrong, but sadly we feel that what Ley and Mackal wrote was most likely just wishful thinking. And now it's time to go over to Jonathan for his regular look at new and rediscovered species. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye for Lilith the cat. Goodbye.
Let's talk about tarsiers, baby. Within the past few weeks, the discovery of a new species of tarsier has been announced. But what is a tarsier? I've been interested in the prosimians, primitive and fascinating members of the primates, the same order as us, since I was a boy reading the books of Gerald Dole. This is where I first learned about creatures like potos and anguantibos, but it was not until the summer of 1968 that I first learned about tarsiers. My family were living in Hong Kong at the time, and we took an extended holiday travelling on a Swedish cargo vessel with about a dozen other passengers, and we sailed from Hong Kong to Australia with a couple of stop-offs in Borneo. Being an earnest little fellow, I wanted to find out what zoological delights might be waiting me, and so I begged my mother to get me a book about the animals of Borneo from the library, and whilst thumbing through it I found a picture that captivated me. It was a tarsier. Tarsiers are small animals with enormous eyes. Each eyeball is approximately 16 millimetres, that's 0.63 inches in diameter, and is as large as, or in some cases larger than, its entire brain. The unique cranial anatomy of the tarsier results from the need to balance their large eyes and heavy head so they are able to wait silently for nutritious prey. The head and body range from 10 to 15 centimetres in length, but the hind limbs are about twice this long, including the feet, and they also have a slender tail from 20 to 25 centimetres in length. The fingers are also elongated, with the third finger being about the same length as the upper arm. Most of the digits have nails, but the second and third toes of the hind feet bear claws instead, which are used for grooming. Tarsiers have soft, velvety fur, which is generally buff, beige or ochre in colour. There are 9 or 10 species of these delightful little creatures, and most of them are in the genus Tarsiers, which is where one can now find this new species. Tarsius naimitzi is a new species of tarsier from the Togian Islands in Tomini Bay, bounded by the northern and eastern peninsulas of Sulawesi. The discovery of this new species highlights how 25 years of sustained research on the alpha taxonomy of Sulawesian tarsiers has helped to identify key conservation priorities in the Sulawesian region of the Wallacea biodiversity hotspot. Wallacea, by the way, is named after Alfred Russel Wallace, the father of biogeography, and is a biogeographical designation for a group of mainly Indonesian islands separated by deep water straits from the Asian and Australian continental shelves. Wallacea includes Sulawesi, the largest island in the group, as well as Flores, Sumba, Timor and many smaller islands. The whole area is remarkable for its range of biodiversity, with new animals being discovered all the time. Now, I've never seen a living tarsier, but if I can quote an old UK television advert for the AA, I know a man who has. Our friend and colleague Carl Marshall, who's presently sleeping in what my mother called her drawing room.
Back in 2013, when my colleague Andrew Jackson and I were studying the fauna of the Kinabatangan River in Sandakan, Borneo, we witnessed many impressive primate species. However, one that really impressed us as we got very close to it was the Bornean tarsier, Cephaloparcus bancanus borneus. This small nocturnal primate subspecies was not only incredibly cute, it was also very, very energetic. We first noticed the little fella perched on the side of a garu tree, and as our group crept up in order to take some photographs, it leaped an enormous distance onto another tree, so we followed it quietly. We were able to get to within a few feet of the little creature and managed to take some fantastic photographs, but then it leaped again, and again, and again. We were all very impressed just how far this little primate could jump, and I must admit we were all in awe of its abilities. We must have followed it for a good 100 yards as it leapt from tree to tree, and we must have spent a good half an hour following it through the jungle. Borneo is full of incredible species such as pygmy elephants, orangutans and proboscis monkeys, but the one I think none of us will be forgetting in a hurry will be our highly entertaining encounter with this wonderful little primate.
The folklore of tarsiers is interesting, with people in the Philippines believing that the Philippine tarsier, Tarsius cyricta or Carlito cyricta, depending who you believe, eats charcoal, but actually they only retrieve the insects from sometimes burned wood. There is even a cryptozoological aspect to tarsiers. In his seminal book On the Track of Unknown Animals, Bernard Heuvelmans writes about Yaramayahu, or the little toothless frog-like man of native Australian legend. It's described as having red skin, a very big head, a large mouth with no teeth, and suckers on the ends of its hands and feet. The Yaramayahu is said to live in fig trees. Instead of hunting for food, it is described as waiting for an unsuspecting traveller, or more sinisterly, playing children, to rest under the tree. The creature then drops down and uses its suckers to drain the victim's blood. After that, it swallows the person, drinks some water, and then takes a nap. When the Yaramayahu awakens, it regurgitates the victim, leaving them shorter than before. The victim's skin also has a reddish tint to it that it didn't have originally. The Yaramayahu repeats this process several times, and at length the victim is transformed into a Yaramayahu themselves. Heuvelmans suggested that this is nothing more than a folk memory of tarsiers, whom the ancestors of the Australian Aboriginals would have encountered in their ancestral home of what is now Indonesia. This story, by the way, terrified me when I first heard it as a child, and continues to send shivers down my spine even now. For those of you who are interested in new and rediscovered creatures, I heartily recommend the Novataxa blog, which can be found here. It is one of those websites upon which I waste too many hours of my increasingly depleted time. I would like to also point out that whereas every effort has been made to contact the copyright holders of these photographs, we believe that we are justified in reproducing them in this not-for-profit video using the policy of fair use. However, if there is anybody who believes that their intellectual or legal rights have been infringed, please contact us and we will do our best to bring the matter to a mutually acceptable solution. First, there's this. Well, this is weird and slightly unsettling because for the first time in 2 and a bit years, I can't go over to Mother to say, and in next month's episode, because Mother's not here. Mother at the moment is on several weeks respite care in a nursing home in Abertram, where she went after she was discharged from hospital a couple of weeks back. Poor dear isn't very well at the moment, and although I hope that she will be back with us very soon, I'm making no predictions at all. Also, something else which means I don't know what's happening next week is that Karina, God bless her, is not very well either. So, basically the next few weeks I'm going to be playing everything by ear. This episode of On the Track will be out at the end of the month, and we have a red episode of On the Track Extra ready to go the week after. But exact dates, times and everything else are still in the lap of the gods. And then there's this.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And now an update on the French Panther story. According to the prosecutor's office in the city of Lille on Tuesday the 1st of October, the man from whose apartment the leopard had escaped presented himself to the police for questioning. He was taken into custody for questioning on suspicion of illegally keeping and abusing a wild animal by cutting its claws. The man was listed as wanted by the police until he turned himself in on the advice of his lawyer. We haven't heard anything else about the whereabouts of the leopard.
Hey, this is Charlie from her back garden, just to say thank you for watching this month's episode of On The Track. I hope you learned something new or you found something interesting, and we hope to see you next month. Goodbye!
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed putting it together. I really enjoy doing On The Track. It's probably the high spot of my month. And, believe it or not, despite the extra work, the fact that we're doing On The Track extras in between each episode just means that I have a bit more fun in the month than I would have found otherwise. I want to say a big thank you to everybody, not just who've helped us put On The Track together, helped us keep the CFZ going, and helped me look after Karina and Mother during their illnesses. I want to say a big thank you to Carl, but for whom I really would not have got through this last month. Thanks, buddy. Now, I have no idea what's going to happen next, but there will be more On The Track extras, and in 4 weeks' time, there'll be another On The Track. Be seeing you. Hello, it's me again. Between 2000 and 2016, I promoted something that we called the Weird Weekend. It was an annual convention for and by the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and it was aimed at bringing together our members and people from across the world who are interested in what we do, what we have achieved, and what we hope to do in the future. It was a gloriously surreal chemical mixture of hard science, weird shit, and groovy silliness. And you know what? I miss it very much indeed. We knocked it on the head in 2016, largely because of a lack of manpower. The people who'd worked so hard over the years to make the event a success had largely moved away, got new jobs or moved on to other things, and sadly several of them had gone through bitter divorces, and 3 of them had died. I miss it so much that a couple of months ago I decided to rebrand our monthly webTV show and try and use it to recapture something of the vibe of the Weird Weekend. On The Track comes out once a month, and in between episodes are episodes of On The Track Extra, which we aim, but don't promise, to get out approximately weekly. Why not check out the 2 episodes of On The Track Extra that I'm linking to here at the end? If you haven't seen them already, I suspect you'll enjoy them a lot.